Good morning, everyone. My name is David Turnbull. I'm one of the associate directors at Directioneering, and I run the Sydney-based executive discussion group. So good morning to everybody. Welcome. A big welcome to Caroline McAuliffe from Watermark. Caroline actually presented to our consultants a few weeks ago, and it was a great presentation and something we are really looking at when we're coaching people, for instance, is whether or not people want to go into interim work. And having come from the UK, I know that interim work there is certainly 40% more of the working population. So this will be a good presentation. So I'll hand over now without further ado to Caroline. Have a good session, everyone.
David, thank you, and thanks everyone from Directioneering for inviting us to present this morning. I've looked at the attendee list, and I've obviously met some of you before, so this is a good opportunity to update you on the findings of our most recent annual survey of the interim market here in Australia. But also for those who I've not met and spoken to, a good introduction to interim management and executive interim placement. It might be for you, it might not be. So we'll just take you through what we do basically and how it works. So Watermark Search, I don't know if all of you are aware, but we've been around 40 years in the Australian market, and we're an executive search firm. We have the largest dedicated and longest standing dedicated interim executive practice in Australia. I was happily engaged 10 years ago to set up the interim practice with a partner for Watermark, and it's grown significantly in that time. In fact, 5 times year-on-year growth for us in the interim practice for Watermark. But equally, we have a strong search practice where we cover executive placement across retained search nationally, internationally, across public and private sector. We also have a board practice, which is very busy as well. Look, let's focus on the interim practice. We have 4 specialised partners, 2 of us based in Sydney, 2 in Melbourne, and we cover a national remit there from Sydney and Melbourne. And we execute around 250 interim assignments each year at the moment, and across both public and private sectors. So it works, interim works sector-wise, widely across every sector, and at that C-suite and the layer below type assignment. So today we're going to take you through a bit of an update on search and interim, and particularly, you know, what's been happening since COVID hit back in March. Talk about the growth of the interim executive market in Australia, and what makes for a successful interim executive we're finding. We'll review the interim market given our report findings, and talk about you know, what makes for a good interim we're finding, and what a client's looking for, and what sectors are hot at the moment, and what functional skills seem to be in demand at the moment. We'll have a look at a few of last quarter's case studies to give you a flavour of the kind of assignments and why a client would look for an interim executive, and then talk about, right at the end, some of the product offerings that have been developed out of the interim practice in our 10 years there. So now COVID hit, who knew? So back in March, our search practice, we all went into lockdown, we were all sent home. Thankfully, our processes and our systems worked quite seamlessly. We were lucky to be able to pretty much overnight just continue to work. Search work did go on hold, and that's no surprise. I feel like people were very reluctant to jump ship, and potentially just the unknown, you know, we're just going to stay where we are for now. So However, in the last 6 weeks in particular, the search mandates are all back on, they're all live, and we're getting a flood of search mandates. So we're busy in search. Interim just continued to assist businesses throughout that triage period. So we continue to place good interim execs into this crisis period. And now we've come out through the other end, and we've tagged or themed our research results as reinvention. And I think that's what organisations are all pretty much doing right now. They're thinking about, what does the future hold? What does it look like? And we certainly think we're going to be more busy in interim, given the fact of the flexibility and nature of the work. When you think about an organisation needing to, with uncertainty, try and work out, well, what do I need? It feels like, and we know we're getting interim assignments that, why would we buy right now? Why don't we just borrow from this amazing pool and keep ahead of the curve, keep things on track, bring some leadership, some really, high tenured leadership in, seasoned leadership in through this period of unknown, and then reassess, down the track. So that's what we're finding. An interesting thing that happened here was that through COVID, we had several interims out working across a variety of sectors and different functional experience, but not one of those people out lost their assignment through this, which was an interesting factor, I think, because in past or days gone by, you'd think the contracting workforce would be the ones that, where you need to make cuts, you would actually go there first. That to me talks to the value that clients are now putting on an interim workforce. They're valuing those as equals to their full-time workforce, and they're not letting them go. I feel like, in fact, if anything, they were extended. And in fact, they were put on to the committees for crisis, to manage COVID and make sure that the wheels kept turning. So that's an interesting, and I think that's happened, past 16 years I've worked in this industry. This is the first time I've seen that kind of recognition, I suppose, and value that clients are now putting into or onto this interim workforce. As I said, we've grown fivefold every year in the last 10 years, and we do account for now 50% overall of the Watermark business. So that gives you an idea of the, the startup nature and conceptual nature of what interim was 10 years ago, to where it is now. And I think it will only go one way, and that's, further and grow further. We celebrate the release of our 10th annual survey. And again, that is reflected, that growth in our market, our sector, is reflected in the 30% uplift in respondents that responded to that survey. So what's behind the growth? The whole labour market has become more contingent. There's this prevalence for lean management and this, post-recession drive to cap costs, post-GFC. So lots of organisational redesign going on, lots of offshoring and outsourcing. And so there's been a growth in the requirement for an interim workforce. So when you look at, what makes up alternative work, we sit clearly in that space there of the freelance independent worker who typically has reached a stage and phase of life, who can now or wants to continue to work, not retiring, potentially not wanting to go into board and advisory work, wants to remain relevant and be challenged continuously, but in a more flexible way. So that's the cohort of interim execs that we work with. And of course, that's a view of the organisational redesign that we've been seeing over the years. Now that's all very nicely summed up into a video that we created. So I might just play that now for you all, and it captures in a good 2 minutes, you know, everything that's created this need for interim.
The rise of the portfolio career and how businesses can benefit from this. To see the future of work, first you have to understand how business is rapidly changing and evolving. Let's explore 3 mega trends that are changing the way we work. 1, organisational structures. 2, let's look at the contingent workforce. And 3, let's look at demographics and how that's changing how we work. Business used to be shaped like a pyramid. The command and controlled industrial era structures were made up of workers, managers and executives. But a global marketplace has changed that. In order to stay competitive, companies have evolved and implemented structural change. Those changes range from outsourcing to offshoring to cost-cutting and process improvement and digitalisation. The organisational pyramid is now more of a rocket ship shape. Organisations are utilising contingent workers as the boosters of that rocket. These workers augment a company's workforce and help it determine how far the company will go. The second factor to explore is a global trend towards a more contingent workforce. The Australian ASX companies have gone from 15% contingent workers in 2016 to 30% by 2020. We're quickly catching up to the US and Europe, where the numbers are even higher. The third mega trend occurring that affects how we work is demographics, particularly the baby boomer cohort. So the dual forces of organisations restructuring and demographics have collided at this point in time, and that's really changed the game. The baby boomers are the largest population group, and market forces have created an opportunity for these baby boomers to stay engaged in meaningful work longer. This additional supply of workers at an executive level is leading to a change in how we all work. This intersection point of excess supply of people at the executive level and leaner organisations has created a new offering, the portfolio professional. Watermark Interim Management specialises in meeting the supply and demand of the contingent workforce and those who choose a portfolio career. For nearly 10 years, Watermark has led the way in this increasingly popular way of working, for employers and employees to engage. We have unmatched expertise in placing interim executives into leadership roles in the public and private sectors. People who embrace a portfolio career tell us that they're at the next phase of their career. The common themes of what they tell us are that the kids have grown, the school fees are paid, the mortgage is under control. Along the way, this group have earned a wealth of knowledge, and they really want to use that, but they'd like to do it a little bit more on their terms. They're now choosing a portfolio career that comprises of interim roles, as well as other revenue streams and lifestyle changes. Businesses are increasingly using these portfolio professionals to deliver results in today's competitive market. These portfolio professionals, combined with the changes in organisational structures, are redefining how the workforce looks. Are you ready to take off? We are. Contact us today to see how your organisation can tap into the power of a portfolio professional.
So yeah, I think that sums up nicely, you know, the coming together of all those factors to create this market. By the way, David, I am actually recording this for you, so, and everybody, so you'll have access to the recording so you can revisit anything that you're interested in. And also, David, you can use it for your other participants as they come on board. So this is a look at our 10th Interim Executive Annual Survey results. We available to download from our website, and some of the highlights. We kind of termed, someone came up and made a comment as one of the respondents talked about this interim being a panacea for the pandemic, and I thought that was a really good way of explaining, you know, what we could do to help in this crisis time. But interestingly, a 23% growth in C-suite interim assignments. So That talks to the fact that I think in past, interim may have been utilised to deploy into general management level and project management level and maybe EGM. But in this past 12 months, there's been a 23% growth in true C-suite interim assignments across the market. And I think, again, that talks to the quality of interim executive we have sitting on the bench. These are the brains trust of Australia that we have access to and clients have access to now. So, you know, why wouldn't you tap into that talent right now and deploy them? And there's a real quality group of people available. There's been a 25% spike in the demand for interims with IT, digital and data. No surprises there. I think digital, I think what's happened is if you didn't have that down pat before COVID hit, it's amplified the need now, particularly where IT and technology meet with customer experience. And I feel like that people are scrambling around to get that right now, you know, so that demand for digital data, IT and customer experience is very much at the top of agenda, as well as 42% jump in demand for Chief Risk Officer. And I think that came off the back of past 2 years Royal Commission results, as well as now the human risk that the pandemic has presented us with. And so people are shoring up their frameworks to ensure that they can continue into the future with that covered off. There was a deep functional expertise, so that's in demand. So that deep functional expertise that an interim can provide. And when we asked the question, you know, do you see a greater expectation for the demand in interims? It was overwhelming that this is going to play a bigger part as we go forward. So what we did with the key findings is we put this umbrella theme around reinvention because that came through very strongly. And then we broke down the findings into 3 pillars. The executive, so basically this is the person who's now wanting to work this way, the interim executive. So we put the results under that, and I'll take you through the results there. The experience, so what do clients require from an interim? What is it they're looking for? And then the environment that's been created through, particularly right now, through this crisis time. So in terms of the executive and what's being for them and what they can offer, there is this need for deep functional and leadership experience. What do clients how do they benefit and what do they value in an interim executive? It's definitely the execution focus that they bring to a challenge, and also the speed of delivery at which they can deliver. You know, it's that fact that they've been there, done that, and they can get in very quickly and uncover what is required, and then help to engage the team internally to make that happen. We talk about superpowers. So when we break down your experience as an interim executive, we're looking for quite granular. What is it that makes you stand out from your peer group and make you different and define your expertise? So we go quite deeply in that when we meet with you to understand, you know, what superpowers, you know, you can present. And some of the areas there that's been identified, particularly at the moment, that's important is stakeholder engagement. And being able to quickly navigate new landscapes, navigate politics that we always come up against, and be able to communicate very strongly, and through transformation and change. Transformation and change is at the heart of what we do, and for an interim executive. The interim executives out working talked about the fact that they're no longer particularly interested in the contract type available to them or being presented to them. And what I mean by that is they no longer, so as much as they might have chosen a portfolio approach to their career, if it's a permanent opportunity, they will consider it. If it's an interim opportunity, they will also consider it. They'll also consider a consulting piece of work. So it's not about, you know, whether it's interim or perm or consulting. It's about the opportunity and whether their deep functional expertise and sector expertise brings some value to that, and they can hand on heart say they are the expert in that field. The other area that has come out here, which is important, is to obviously remain relevant and have that continuous learning mindset. And if I'm asked, you know, what area should I do some extra learning and development in, I would suggest it would be in the digital technology space, regardless of what function and expertise you have. To understand this new fast moving landscape, I think would be important to do some extra learning and development. From a client's point of view, there's been this shift to the C-suite, as I mentioned before, which is great. The increase in digital, this move to customer experience, you know, the need for customer experience. We've all got a choice now. So as consumers, and we've moved online to online buying, I think through this COVID period, that's been amplified. So organizations really need to get that customer experience journey right. Rates have maintained, and I'm talking about day rates there. So in terms of the daily rate that you are offering your services at, that remains quite solid at around the $1,500 per day is the average rate that we're achieving and seeing out there. The assignment requirements currently, or in the past 12 months and then currently now, definitely around transformation and change still at the core. Cost out or right sizing, this need for digital expertise, risk and governance. So a lot of assignments have that in the brief, and we're seeing that. Yes, it's a more competitive environment for everyone, and so when we are asked, you know, how do I best navigate this? Networking is the key. I don't think that's any surprise. I think, but it's networking in this new way. It's networking with your professional network. It's networking with your personal network. It's continuing to make connections through third-party providers like us, to continue making those connections, because a lot of the work will come still from your own network, particularly right now, as organisations are a bit budget conscious. If they have a piece of work that needs to be looked at and done, they will look to their own network first, to avoid having to pay the likes of me. So I get that, and that's something that we engage with, and you know, that's fine, and it works sometimes. But your own networks can be quite can be limited in some respects. So that's why I get the call, and or the team get the call, and we say, you know, they say, look, who have you got on your bench who might be, you know, a closer fit to what we need right now, because we can't afford to get this wrong. So the biggest challenge for interim executives out working in the market is the consistency of work, or has been. And I think, you know, it is more competitive too. So you have to work hard at networking and remaining relevant in your space, and being visible to those who are hiring. And the consistency of work, we've been tracking that trend over the past 10 years, and it's definitely coming down, you know, to less of a gap between assignments. But, you know, it's still something that we're working on. I feel like our own sector has become more competitive too. So you'll see more third-party providers like Watermark out placing or having a practice of interim executive. So there will be more work generated from that, which is a good thing. Yeah, it's about promoting yourself at the moment, you know, so learning how to self-promote if it doesn't come naturally, and it really doesn't to some people. And it's about brand me, you know, as opposed to the brand you're working for. So it's really about, you know, honing those skills. And I know Directioneering and David and the team there work hard on that for you as you participate and go through. That's an area that they can help you with, and we certainly will also guide you through some of that too. You join our community if you join us on, you know, on the database, or if we register you for interim work. And so again, that's just growing your network and being part. But you really do need to make it part of your day. You know, and be involved on social media in particular, and LinkedIn, and make commentary. The more visible you are, the better, really. So the environment, I mean, no, we've all lived through it, right? And we're living through it right now. It's unprecedented. And that first phase, we term triage, and health and well-being has really shifted to the top of people or organisations' concerns for their workforce. Now we're going through a phase of reinvention and reimagining and right-sizing and future-proofing our businesses and organisations going forward. So you can imagine the type of assignments that might come out of that. I think it's really important. We are all in this together, and we can make a better world of it if we come through this together. And it's been really enjoyable to now meet with people online, and it's all done differently. We're slightly more authentic in our communication with one another, and I feel like that's a good thing. So if something good comes out of all of this, it's that. There will be new approaches to hiring. We feel like that there'll be organisations will look at more flexible career paths, less linear perhaps, and more of an interim nature actually. Where is it happening? You know, supply chains that were affected are being shored up, digital again, you know, cultural aspects, that's going to be important. How do you keep a more dispersed workforce engaged culturally? That will be top of agenda to make sure we're doing that well. You know, is there a new narrative that we need to be talking about? Do we have to develop a new way of communicating with one another? Do we have to be more technology or Zoom good at that, you know, delivering online as opposed to face-to-face? Customer experience is, again, that's an area which everyone's thinking about. And yeah, the whole remote working teams, how do we keep people engaged, and what does this mean from all sorts of different aspects for our future of work? So the biggest changes in the workplace is the social and economic change, and the remote working and digital space. We are working hard to speak to as many clients as we can right now, make sure that they're fully aware of the quality of people available to them should they wish to deploy you know, an interim into their business right now. We definitely see that we're set for huge growth. Some of the skills gaps that we would identify for the future, or have been identified through our report, was, you know, that C-suite executive leadership, the traits that are required through this kind of period are coming to the fore, you know, and it's all around empathy and communication and transparency. So those are the leadership traits that organisations, I think there may be a skills gap there. Finance and digital and IT, of course, and risk governance. So we asked organisations, how are you currently covering off and, you know, or dealing or managing this crisis? 50% of them are redeploying existing staff, and I would say that can be fraught with danger, given you may be overloading people in an already vulnerable space. And so we are talking to our clients about, do look at the option of interim right now, because the last thing you want to do is overload your people at the moment. The greatest sector need we see for the future is obviously human services and health, frontline. FMCG and retail, I guess, that's really, they've become, they've come to the fore and to the front really during this time. And so there could well be a spike and need within that space. And of course, government continues to be a client in need currently. That's a quick look there at a great AFR article that was featured in the AFR, I think about a week or so ago now. We're featured in that, our survey results are featured in that, and it's talks to two very seasoned interim executives and their experience of working in this sector, and what defines them as interim executives and why organisations should be looking to engage right now with this workforce. So I'll also send a link to that with the link to this recording, David and everybody, so you can have a look at that. Just a quick review of the past 12 months. When we talk about meetings here, client and business development meetings, really strong focus for us, obviously in trying to build awareness. So as a team of 4 of us across the country, did 892 client and business development meetings. So we've been busy, as well as registering over 1,000 new interim executives through the registration process. And I have seen a definite uptick as people come off executive roles currently due to downsizing and change in sectors, particularly, those sectors in trouble like the tourism and travel industry been coming through strongly. But we will continue to register. But what that means is that we absolutely will register people. We are doing our damnedest to get as many opportunities for you, but it might not be immediate. So it's more a case of maybe registering, and we're keeping as much contact as we can. But we really don't know what's going to come through the door. We're generalists, and so it's a case of being registered, being known to us, communicating with us continually, and then when something comes in, we turn that assignment around in about 48 hours usually. So it's about being on the radar for what we very rarely get runway or notice of what is required. We're still a very short-term immediate solution, so we never quite know when or where that opportunity will come from. So it's more about being registered with us and being known to us, but we can't guarantee when the opportunity might come up. This is a quick snapshot look at July for a year, the last 12 months, so for July to June. So we had 100 roles briefed in that time period. The current average length of contract was around 39 weeks or 8.6 months. And the average day rate achieved was the 1,500 mark. So gives you an idea of the type. It gives you an idea of the types or sectors that we have been working in that time frame. And just a closer look there: health, insurance, education, construction, not-for-profit, and financial services, banking at the top, and government. So again, no surprises there around where, for the past 12 months, the sectors we've been working in. And that's a quick look at the functional expertise that has been required. And as you see, CFO and finance at the top of the tree, together closely with the Chief People HR Officer and all of the functional expertise required in that space. Legal, CIO, ops, marketing. So a good range, but there's obviously transformation, risk, the CEO role. That so those are the functional expertise roles that we've been placing. What I talked about before was the whole market, but I think it's in line. There's no change there. That is a reflection of the entire market. Watermark, been around 40 years. This is our bread and butter, basically. So if you look at the numbers there overall for search and interim, we've conducted over 5,000 searches in those years, and on CEO and CFO, we've placed the equivalent of a CEO every 4 weeks and a CFO for every 3 weeks on those numbers. So it really is in our laneway. This is what we do. Give you a quick idea of the first quarter 2020 case studies. So this is what we've been working on most recently, and give you a flavour there of the type of assignment, why the term. So interim CFO, gaming, media, entertainment. It was a 3 to 6 months. We deployed an interim CFO, and the reason that was required immediately was the incumbent had left the role with immediate effect, and therefore they needed someone immediately to come in and sit in that role and caretake in a very dynamic way. And again, you see the turnaround 2 to 4 working days. CFO banking, 6-month assignment. Again, it was for them a period of transformation change and regulatory scrutiny. So they needed a CFO with strong financial services experience who understood the regulatory framework. And again, 1 week in, we placed the interim. We had a brand marketing and comms executive for a professional services legal firm. Again, a 6-month assignment. This was a new CEO had come into the team, and she wanted someone with a depth of experience to help develop a new framework around their brand marketing and comms. So again, within a week, we were able to fill that one. And that one, I think, actually that lady transitioned to a permanent role with the organisation. And so that can happen sometimes as well. It depends on, if you fall in love with each other and where you want to be. Again, it's that case of, as much as I am interested in interim and the variety it affords me, I also am interested in finding somewhere where I enjoy and maybe taking the more permanent contract. We put in a head of HR for a government-owned corporation for 6 months. They needed specific insurance, governance and risk experience to assist again a new exec director and his team to develop their leadership framework and also deal with a functional restructuring. So again, 1 week in, we were able to place that person. Head of IT for a higher ed, for a uni. They were deployed for 6 months. Time of enormous change for higher ed, transformation. And they really needed subject matter expertise in that role. And they lead a team, and that person, including cybersecurity, which is another hot area at the moment, and those people are like hen's teeth out there. So that person's gone in, and he actually will be extending for another period of time. I'm not sure if it'll be 4 or 6 months. So that's ongoing. Program manager HR for, again, to lead a very specific project in insurance in a government-owned corporation again, but to actually be a program lead. So that's a piece of work, again, subject matter expertise required for a very specific area of insurance, and we were able to identify someone who could go in. They've been there and done that before, so that was great. An estate logistics director for a business services organisation. They really needed someone to come in and turn that operation around very quickly. They were going through a time of crisis and it was really impacting their business. So that person went in and helped within a week to help turn that around. Quickly on some new service offerings that we've developed out of the interim practice. I guess we are seen as a bit of the innovation hub of new ideas. We're fresh and new ourselves, so we're able to think about and move with the times with our clients and think about what is it they need right now from us. Key Person Risk Initiative is a product or service offering that we offer to boards and executives where they have, yes, they may have a succession plan internally, but should they also want the extra insurance of a person or assurance of a key person, so if they identify, particularly in the area of Chief Risk Officer or CFO, should that person within, in the next 12 months leave the organisation, what we will do is map that role with our portfolio professionals, named portfolio professionals, and present them with 3 or 4 named people in the list, and then they will sign off on that as a board or a governance to ensure that they have a key person lined up should they require that person at any time as an emergency during the next 12 months. So that's been of interest to several boards that we've spoken to. And then Total Executive Search Solution is a service offering that we have come together with our search partners on to offer organisations a seamless process whereby you have a gap, maybe a CFO or CEO. You firstly put in place an interim executive tomorrow to manage that function for a period of time whilst conducting a search concurrently. The interim will inform the search as to what is actually required, given they're in the seat, in the chair, and that helps to then have a search that is done in a very well, a quality search as opposed to a speed, to fill that gap or that role very quickly, because you've got the interim in place, there's comfort around that things are being managed. At the same time, they're informing on the search as to what is actually required, and then you get a seamless handover at the end to set the incoming permanent executive up for success, because they're going to get a true reading on what's going on in that role from the interim. So that's the idea of Total Executive Search Solution. I think that's all I have to present today, unless there's questions that you've all been saving. I'd love to field any questions that you might have right now.
It's Peter here. I guess the main comment I've got is that I was going tick against pretty much every bullet point.
Hello, Peter.
Yes, it was like you were describing me. At the exact point at which I've arrived.
Very good. Have you registered with us as yet, Peter?
Not yet, no. This is the first month of my portfolio career.
Oh, well, I'm really pleased to meet you, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, and it was always my intention to revert to this. It happened a little bit quicker than I expected, but not much.
I think that's absolutely right. It's a good observation, and that's the kind of conversation I've been having with people who I've been meeting of late, that they've always had it in the back of their head that this would be a really good option for them. And now it might have come forward in their thinking sooner than they had imagined. And that's okay, because it's up and running and it's a reality. So
yeah. It was interesting, you mentioned about continuity of work.
Yeah.
And I was doing this about 8 or 9 years ago, but it wasn't quite enough continuity. So I went back into the city for the big job.
I
And
agree.
8 years later, I'm back out now, finally back to what I love doing.
I agree with you, and I feel like we've been working hard to grow awareness of this and almost professionalise what's always been in Australia, and that's the, your own personal professional network. If we've got a piece of work to do, who do we know we can bring in? That's all very well, but as I said, those networks can be limited to functional sector. And so what we've done, we've taken our cue from around the world. The interim market in UK is enormous and mature, and it's seen as a profession in its own right, and it's very valid. A hire when a company in particular is going through stress or needs fixing. And in fact, as an interim executive, you're seen as a very credible resource. And if you're very well known in your field of expertise, you become a bit of a rock star, and the media will pick up on the fact that you're going in to do this work, and it's seen as a very credible thing to do as a career. We've been playing catch up a little bit in Australia for the past 16 years. When I started off here, it was very conceptual, but I feel like we've reached a tipping point. And awareness, and some of those stats I talked about, and the idea that interims are valued now alongside permanent headcount. I feel like that shows that we've reached a time in its life cycle where it's seen as a very valid and credible hire.
Do you get one question I have is, do you get demand for part-time rather than full-time?
Absolutely. In fact, it's a bit of a lever we can pull with clients who are budget conscious around finding the right resource, but perhaps finding the day rate a little bit high for 5 days a week, when clearly they can bring someone in 3 to 4 days a week and get a huge amount of value from that right person for them, and keep the budget in check as well.
Okay, that's very useful to know, because that would be an obvious one to, in my case, backing up, for example, a CIO who doesn't have my specific expertise, but that's the program of work they've got.
That's right. They're buying.
You don't need me 5 days a week.
Yeah, you'll get, absolutely, you'll get 5 days value out of this person anyway, because of their experience. So yeah, clients would much rather bring in someone 3 or 4 days a week who's maybe at a higher rate than they were anticipating to get the quality delivered. Also, as a portfolio professional, you will have other things in your portfolio that you're working on. And so to actually work 3 days in, perhaps at a cornerstone client on an interim assignment, then you might have a couple of board appointments that you've chosen to work in, and you might do some consulting. So, it's actually expected almost that you would be available 3 or 4 days, but potentially not 5.
Yep. Okay, great.
Hello, it's Patrick.
Hi, Patrick.
Thanks so much for your presentation. It's kind of reinforced my belief that interim is the way to go.
Oh, good.
The question I have is around matching. So in terms of the process you use for matching your requirements to people on your database, I'm wondering how you go about it, and whether the individuals people like me can actually help you to match.
You absolutely are key to that. So when we talk about superpowers, so on the face of it, your resume will tell us one thing, that you're a CFO or a COO or a CIO and you've worked in these sectors. And then we go a little bit more granular around the projects that you've worked on, and what you'd like to do in the future, and what you're passionate about and what you're really good at. And if you wrap all that up in what's happening in the environment right now, where do you need to be seen to be, you know, in the right space right now. So when we talk about superpowers, we want you to think about what makes you stand out from the crowd, what makes you define you from your peer group. Because if I've got 3 CFOs and then I get a key criteria briefing from the client, I need to immediately go to, well, that's Patrick, right? So because he ticks all of these boxes right now that they've told me are so important for, you know, this is what's got to happen in the next 6 months. Sometimes that's not about sector experience. It's very much about your deep functional expertise, because I feel like most of, at C-suite level, a lot is transferable. There's a few roles, of course, where you have to have sector experience. So insurance comes to mind, health comes to mind, but there's such a good transferable skill set across sectors or allied sectors that we need to kind of see through. But what we really need to nail is your superpowers to actually make the match.
Thank you. So what's the best way of getting that across to you? Within the resume or a separate document? Or what?
No, so what we do is when we get your resume on file, and then you ought to meet one of us in the team, and then we take you through a registration process. And it's at that point in time where we try and understand and uncover all of those things. And the more contact then after that we have together, of course, is the better. And what we do is try and engage you on different webinars, and we build a community, and we try and keep that going. When I get a brief, I will call a short list of candidates who I've met or the team have met who meet the initial criteria. And the first thing is almost certainly, are you available immediately? Because they'll want you tomorrow or next week. And then the second thing is geography isn't quite an issue anymore, because we're all tending to work from home. And so that might have been an issue before. So currently we've got a CFO role assignment in Melbourne, and they started the brief with, we need someone local. Well, now they're in stage 4 lockdown. No one's going anywhere. So actually the interim could be in Sydney or Brisbane or anywhere else. So that's expanded our search somewhat because we can. The other thing happened the other day. I got a brief from a business head office in Melbourne. They have operations across Australia, New Zealand, and Thailand, and they have issues in their Brisbane operations. Ordinarily, the COO or head of supply chain would jump on a plane and be up in Brisbane and sort this out. Can't do it. So now they've engaged a director of operations in Brisbane on the ground for the next 6 months to be their eyes and ears. So there's a few things there in answer to your question, but what it's about is about trying to understand how you know your particular areas of expertise and why, and meeting the key criteria. So when I take a brief, I'd call you generally, probably, you're available immediately, right, let's have a chat about this. Is this a fit to your background and experience? Can you hand on heart say, I can go in tomorrow and be an expert in my field in that particular space for them right now? I meet all of that criteria. And that's when we start to uncover whether, you know, you should be shortlisted. I feel like I also will take, you know, what you have in your resume, but you and I will work up a kind of cover letter that's very compelling as to why you should meet this client. And you know, a lot of that will be in your head. It's not going to be on the 1 or 2 pages you've had to squeeze everything in. So what I try and do is try and draw that out during our conversation and create a bit of a pitch, if you like, as to why, you know, above and beyond your resume.
Thanks, Caroline. I've already done a marketing kind of pamphlet, if you like. Perhaps I can send that into one of your people and go from there.
I think we have had contact, Patrick, have we not? Your name is familiar. Are you in my diary to meet up, or?
I'm not in your diary. We have had contact, and I've filled out the questionnaire.
Okay. Okay, good.
So I'll send that through to you, and then we can go from there.
All right, lovely. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
It's David. You've got a couple of questions on the chat.
All right. Let's have a look here. If I just stop this sharing, maybe. All right, here we go. What is the best way to register with Watermark? Yes, via our website, but also, Alicia, my trusty engagement manager, is all over that. There you go. So yes, please don't hesitate to contact Alicia Wilson. She's provided her email there, should you wish to register. That's fantastic. Thanks, Ali. Yes, this is a good question. If I'm offered the dream full-time role, do you have the flexibility to deregister and then re-register if it does not turn out to be as good as anticipated? Absolutely. So my view on that is register, and then should you get the next dream role, full-time role, you then get, you just get unticked for that period of time. But what's great is we're always going to be here, and it just cycles back through. So I've known some of our interims for a number of years. They will be on assignment, they'll come off assignment, they'll take a full-time role, then they come back to me. So this is a bit of a this is a relationship for life, basically. And so absolutely, if you would like to register and potentially fill a gap whilst you're looking for your dream role, that's perfectly fine. We also might, in our search business, have the dream role for you, so be on our radar, because they also access your details too for any search mandates that come up. So it's best to be on their books as well. You're on the same book, basically. And yeah, the only thing I would say about, with caution about interim, is you can see from our stats that the assignments are moving out to the longer end, so 9 months. We do now and again get 3-month opportunities where the potential, particularly when there's a permanent search underway and you're just covering for notice period. But anything beyond 3 months, if you are determined to get your next full-time gig, I would think about that clearly, because you don't want to take an assignment and then almost remove yourself from the search market for that long. So it's just about, it's a bit of a balancing act. 3 months you can do quite easily, even with a search on the go, because it takes that long. But anything beyond that, just be cautious about where you're committing, basically. And Ali's actually answered that too. Thanks, Ali. Evolution and distribution in range of duration for interim exec assignments. So we've got 4 to 5 months, but I think you mentioned an average of nearly double that today. And it's true, I think, from our report. So 4 to 5 months on our website could be our average. The average I mentioned today might have been the, I don't know if that's the whole of market. But what I would say about that is there's been an evolution. So when I first got involved in interim, it was very much in the space of 3 months coverage for that period of time while we're recruiting the full-time search, and then perhaps, you know, a bit longer for a handover until we, you know, that person gives a notice period. The caretaker type assignment was prevalent. Now it's about transformation and change at the heart mostly of the people we're putting in. Regardless if they're sitting in a role, it's a very dynamic, transforming, changing role. And so that tenure has increased year on year as, you know, transformation and change has become the heart of what we're doing, and the world out there. And so you can't undertake or achieve change and transformation in 3 months. So that's why people are engaging with an interim on a change mandate, transformation in a transforming world. And they're usually put on for a minimum of 6 months, and then almost certainly things take longer, and they are kept and extended for a further 9 to 12 months. The other aspect is, again, transformation from an enterprise-wide. I've got currently a transformation director working for a power company on what is ultimately a 5-year enterprise change program, but they've chunked it down into 12-month pieces, because why wouldn't you? You can bring in, you know, phase 1 interim executive with that particular skill set and experience. But for phase 2 and year 2 and year 3 and year 4 and year 5, that might shift a little bit. And so I can, you know, genuinely refresh that right person, right time, right brief. So yeah, that's the evolution. It's moved from caretaker to safe pair of hands to very dynamic, changing landscape. Just this VUCA world, call it. That's the world we're living in now, and that's why the mandates have changed and got longer. And that's it, I think, David. Was that all the questions? Have I covered them all?
Yeah, Caroline, yes, you have. Thank you very much.
Right.
If there are any more coming through, I don't see any more. Just to say a big thank you. I have to say, every time I hear you and see you, I take away something new. And I think the whole piece around COVID and location is an interesting one, because in theory, one can do a job from anywhere, and we're proving that. Equally, the urban myth that an interim role is not a proper role is by and large history. That's not the case at all. And many people that we work with in Directioneering go to do an interim role and then find the perfect full-time role where they actually are. So there are some huge benefits in that. Just so that everybody knows, Directioneering is starting a new workshop in September around building your digital brand, because it's something that we talk to individuals about all the time, but we're conscious that there are some issues around that people just need to know a bit more information on. And I will be sending around some notes on this for you, and Caroline, I'm grateful Caroline has recorded this, so I'll be sending that around to you as well. Any issues on this, by all means, go to your consultant, or indeed come to me. We have very good links with Watermark. We've worked with them for a long time. And that's not a plug for Watermark, but just to let you know, I mean, I have, since I've been in Directioneering, had big search firms tell me on more than one occasion that if they get anybody that comes, simply saying that so that you're aware that Watermark, even within the search industry, are seen as leaders. And that's one good reason why Directioneering works so closely with them on your behalf. Caroline, thank you.
Thanks, David, and thanks everyone. As I said, look forward to hearing from you if you feel like you'd like to be registered with us. And yes, we'll follow up with the recording, and I think we've already sent the survey link to everyone pre this call, so that's good. And Ali, we might send the link to the AFR article, because I think it's a really good read.